the meeting to order. Town of Blowing Rock Planning Board for November 15th, 2021. Call to order. We have a quorum, so I'll accept a approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Do we have a second?
Is there a second on that? Pete?
Page.
Pete Page? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Approval of the minutes, motion to approve the last minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Joe?
Mike, second.
Mike, second. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, we have an SUP with Mr. Heatherington. Kevin, please.
Yes. This is conditional zoning case. It's 2021-02. I believe it's 02. This is to rezone the property from central business to conditional zoning central business. And Steve Heatherington is requesting this rezoning. Is the former Stone Pillar Bed and Breakfast, which has been demolished, also the Snips building, which has been demolished several years ago. And the property is .337 acres, located between Pine Street and Laurel Lane. And the applicant is proposing construction of a 14-room hotel. The proposed hotel will have parking access to that site on the lower level. And this shows the lower level of parking and highlighted there. Access will be first from Pine Street. It will be one way, entering from Pine and exiting onto Laurel Lane. There'll be 2 floors above the garage. The first floor will have 8 units with 16 bedrooms, and the second floor will have 6 units with 6 rooms. So you can see the different levels here. So the second, third floor here, the different elevations. I'll show in just a minute, but the brown and green rooms are 2-bedroom units, and the light blue and the red are 1-bedroom units. The street setback for town center is 15 feet, and that's measured from the back of the proposed sidewalk along each street. And there's an existing sidewalk on Laurel Lane. One will be proposed and constructed on Pine Street, and the building meets those required setbacks. There's a side setback of 5 feet, and the project meets the 5-foot setback as well. And I'll show you this detailed civil drawings here. And as you can see, I'm going to come back and talk about building height in a moment, but just going back through the parking access, this shows 23 parking spaces provided, 22 are required for the project. You can see where you come in on Pine, coming on Pine Street, going through the project, underneath the building and out to Laurel Lane, and then there'll be a little check-in area here, elevator, elevator here, stair access here, stair access here, and an emergency exit out through the site on that corner. Stormwater for the project, they will collect, most of it will be collected underneath the building because it's going to go through guttering on the outside of the building and collect on the inside, and then will be piped back towards Pine Street into a detention system made up through this, and then we'll discharge out into Pine Street right here at this location. Sewer will be connected to Pine Street, and all electrical service will be underground. Water will be fed from Pine Street as well. Garbage collection will be in rollout containers here, hidden by the end of the building wall, and garbage will be collected here from the street. They'll just walk in and pick up each can and put them back into the corral. You go back to the building height. Describe what's going on here. Okay, let me go through the staff report. The maximum building height is 30 feet based on the standard 15-foot setback. But beyond the setback, as the building gets further away from the street, the code allows you to incrementally increase the building height. For every 5 feet you go back, you can go up an additional foot. And you can go up to a maximum of 40 once you get back 65 feet on the property. Now, there's a section in here that I mentioned in our code, section 1612.652. But that is not the section. Bill pointed it out, and it's always good to have Bill looking over things here to help me out sometimes. The section, that is a section that talks about where the maximum building height is established, that governs the entire structure. And that's what that sentence says. But that section is specifically talking about measuring buildings on each side, and in particular, if you're on Main Street, and maybe you've got a vacant lot out here across the street from us on Jim Brown's property. You can always go to 30 feet, but you can also, there's a provision to restrict you from not more than 25% of the average building heights on each side. And so that section is talking about that. And so really that subject or that paragraph does not apply in this case. What does apply is 16-12.6.5.4, and has the table in it on how you can stagger the building. If you go back further, you can go up higher. And the second sentence in that paragraph, for purposes of this paragraph, the entire structure must be located at or beyond the 50-foot setback. And if you are, then you can take advantage of that provision. What the applicant would like to do is meet the intent of what that section is referring to. If you look at that, it would be 30 feet all the way across the top, because they're 15 feet off the sidewalk, and that limits you in the entire building based on this section to 30 feet. 30 feet of building height all the way through. What they would like to do is 30 feet to the point where they meet that, there's 66 and a half feet, is that right, Bill, what you came up with? Once they get to that point, then they want to increase the building height, and then eventually when they're 80, we look here, once they get to 85 feet, then they'll be at the maximum peak of 40 feet. And so with the conditional zoning, that's what they're asking for as an exception, as a condition of their approval, to allow the building to be constructed in this way, to meet the 15-foot setback, go up to 30 feet, as you can see here on this end. And then as they get further back on the building, then add that second level or the additional level and the roof structure within that. Okay?
How far back is it from Wallingford? Does that give us enough?
Wallingford?
Yeah.
It's another lot. It's not on Wallingford.
What I'm saying is, how many?
100 feet.
So they got plenty of room to.
So it's going to be built on these two lots. This is not their property.
I see.
And so if you want to measure this, it's 100 feet to the property from Wallingford. It's going to be, look at, so the property, this is Laurel Lane. The town owns this big wide piece through here. So this is the town's property line. This is the 15 feet off of that property line. And that's where the building begins. So they're about 32 or 33 feet from the back of the sidewalk on Laurel Lane. Would you estimate that, Mike?
The building, Kevin?
Yes.
From the edge is about 37 and a half feet from the edge of the street there.
Not the street, back of the sidewalk, 32?
That 37 and a half feet, that's what I was measuring.
Okay.
From the back of the sidewalk.
Got it. So that gives you a perspective on Laurel Lane, it'll be 37 and a half. And then on this end, on Pine Street, 15. So hopefully I explained that. I kind of misled you, not on purpose, but I had read the wrong section. I knew there was a section that talked about governing the height of the building once you establish that setback. And so that's the section that's referring to, that gives the flexibility once you push the building back. Okay? As far as landscaping, this is the landscape plan. It shows some trees. Really, not a lot of room between the side property line. They are planning to landscape that, especially on the Pine Street side. On the Laurel Lane side, they're going to take down some of the big pines that really, at this point, don't have much value other than being a danger. So they're going to remove those pines and come back and replace and put some other trees back in this place, in the places of those pines. Many of you here for the neighborhood meeting we had in October, and there were some questions asked at that time, and I believe they answered them too. Notice was provided for the planning board meeting for tonight, and at this point I'll be glad to answer questions, and the applicant can fill in if I mess up.
Okay, any questions from the board there?
Kevin, it may be a crazy question, but if there were three buildings with a division between the center building and the outside buildings, would that fit the code, or is it they'd be too close?
No, you could do multiple buildings. You could, just like the previous proposal was for townhomes, and each townhome has ownership of the land underneath. It's a lot into itself. But you can build zero lot line in that situation as a townhome unit. And that they were proposing to do that at that time.
Where I'm going with that is that if we grant the request, we're accommodating what could have been done separately, but would be unreasonable to do separately. It would be something that would be forced and not consistent with good practice.
That middle building wouldn't have been subject to the 50-foot.
Right. I look at it as a whole, just looking at the building, they're trying to, any additional height, they're trying to bring it into the center of the building so it doesn't have the imposing effect of being 40 feet at the 15-foot setback. And I think they are trying to meet the intent of what our ordinance was prescribing. Although that section was written, it said if you want to take advantage of that, then the whole building's got to be pushed back to, I believe it's 65 feet to go to the 40-foot building height. The 50-foot is also in there to establish where you measure the building height from. If you're forward of 50 feet, you measure the building height from the sidewalk elevation. Once you get back to 50, then it changes the game and you're measuring from the primary entrance. No real difference on this site because it's perfectly flat, within a couple of feet. So that doesn't change much. You get a lot that's sloped or goes down. You've got different places to measure the building height from. Our downtown codes don't allow any building wall taking the average on the back. You know, if a building was built across the street, if the lot sloped greatly, the building from the average grade along that wall to the highest point of the structure could not exceed 40 feet. So that was another way to keep the size of buildings under a certain limit. I don't know if I answered the question that you had. I went into depth on what they're trying to do.
Well, I'm looking at what they're trying to do seems to be reasonable in the overall plan of the project, given what could be done with separate buildings. That
Yeah.
it would not be necessary to do the separate buildings if we are comfortable with granting the request.
Right.
Anybody else? Harrison?
Is the height going to be right at 40 feet?
Yes. You see right here in the diagram, they're showing the peak of the roof. And so that, you know, it's got a peak to it. So that's the very tip of it. The other parts of that roof plane are below 40 feet. Is there a... So
But we're
let's
talking
look
about
at
height,
the
not
end
the-
elevation here. So you're going to have another peak. I'm probably getting in build stuff here, but there's a peak right there and there's a peak right there. So that roof plane is cutting off this way and this way, but you don't see it from this perspective. If you look at that peak ridge is behind this face. Here we go. Let's look at these. You see that? Perspective from Pine Street. Go below the, you know, towards Wallingford from Pine. Come back up.
How much higher is this than the tallest building in front of it? Being, I would guess, the old Hayes House place. I mean, it's going to tower down on them?
No, the Hayes House, because it's about 8 to 10 feet above this property, is higher than this. This building, overall height is about 6 feet higher than that building.
Than the Hayes House, the old Hayes House.
Yes, but the Hayes House is above it in grade. You see the Hayes, right here, the highest point here, about 35. But this is 7, 8, and 9 feet above the grade of this. So it's still above this.
Okay, any other questions before we turn it over to Mr. Heathington?
What does our code say that it can go to now? 30?
Well, 30 to here.
30 to there,
For this
right.
portion of the building. What that section says that 30 feet has to go all the way through because you've established a setback here of 15 feet. What they're trying to do is say, all right, we'll use 30 feet to govern the height of the building until we get back to a certain point. Once we're back 65 feet, we want to bump that up.
Which they could do if it were a freestanding building.
Yeah, I get what you're saying now, yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I think you can see it better right there.
Okay, Steve, would you like to make your presentation, please?
Yeah, members of the planning board, thank you for seeing this tonight. I'm with Bill Dixon and Mike True.
Come up here. This mic's on. I mean, you can probably walk around with this mic, but that way it's
Yeah.
picking up
Sorry
on the
about that.
video.
I'm out of practice, so. So members of the planning board, thank you for allowing us to present today. I'm with Bill Dixon and Mike True. We are bringing this project to you with a conditional ask for the height, as Kevin just explained in detail. We're very excited about this project. We feel like we are trying to meet the town's image with this product. Having a continuous height would look kind of monotone and wouldn't give it that feel of a grand building. I could build this together that would show the product if you want. Sorry, we only have one. It would give it a very monotone look, and unfortunately with these projects, they have to make financial sense, and in order to have a successful product like we have on the corner at Main and Pine, to have the nice facade and the nice look and the nice quality, they have to meet a certain performer. So having the extra floor will allow us to have a more quality building throughout versus one that's lesser material and lesser in just style and image. We like this process of the neighborhood meeting. We like to listen to what people said and bring this to you and make the changes we can. We had a project that we heard the town, we changed our direction on it. We came up with this plan, and we feel like this is something that is meeting as many aspects of the code as we can. We're hitting density, parking. I mean, those are usually the main things, is parking and density, and I feel like the site limits those things as much as you can do. That kind of sets the size and use of the building. One of the things we will do is an improvement of the water line down Pine Street. We will need to do it for our water capacity and fire hydrant capacity, but that would be an improvement that we would be doing at our cost down Pine Street. But thank you if you have any questions.
Mike?
Steve, will the office be open 24 hours?
Yeah, so the access, it's called an office. There may be somebody there, there may be not, but the use and the access of the property will be through a digital code. So as we operate the Main and Pine building, when people book, they will just get a code. They'll use that code to get access to the building. Then they'll go up to their unit and they'll use that code to get into their unit. So it doesn't necessarily need somebody at the check-in desk.
There's not a upfront intent to staff 24 hours away.
No, it's not necessary. It's a hotel, but these are more like suites. They have kitchen, living rooms, bathroom. It's more like a condo suite versus a hotel room. Where you need to have that on-site staff to run you things and stuff like that.
Steve, could you go, or Kevin, put up the Laurel Lane? You mentioned replacing trees. There's some that are dead. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that and what you're proposing?
Yeah, absolutely. As you can see here, our property line is short it's about 20 feet.
From here?
Yeah, from the sidewalk to here is about 20 feet.
About 20-something.
Yeah, approximately 20-something feet. That is not our land, it's the town land, but we would, at our cost, remove any dead trees and plant new trees and look to ultimately dress up that area so that we have a more, visually acceptable area for the exit. One thing as well on the Pine Street side, lesson learned from me, I will be adding gated access to parking so that only people staying in the building will be able to park in there.
Again, with the key code, you go ahead and do the key code.
Can we go back to what Walt was saying, please? These 4 large white pines here, one to be removed, 4 to be replaced is what we're referring to.
Kevin, is the Historical Society or whoever's working on that, those monuments, is that on the other side, or is it going to be on this side too?
I don't know. I think it's going to be on the other side.
On the other
at least,
side.
But I don't know if there's anything over here.
Okay. And what kind of trees, Steve, were you talking about to replace?
Yeah, we worked with Kevin on the actual tree species, but I think we called for, Kevin, for the replacement tree.
I don't know if we've specified.
Yeah, I don't think we specified, but we would work with Kevin on what trees that would be appropriate to put there.
Yeah, I mean, there would be some hardwoods put back.
Yeah.
Well, not be white pines, I think that's.
No, they won't. I mean, they could have some conifers of some kind, to help hide it, some spruce or something like that. But, white pines are really fast growing. I mean, it's going to take 60, 70 years for them to get as big as those others. But that would not be what, if there's some planted in there to help buffer the property from the street some. And then some overstory shade trees, maples and oaks and things like that.
Okay.
And continue that through their site as much as possible. Now, on the side, there's not, you don't have a lot of room. You have some ornamental trees, some bushes and stuff just to help, you're not really buffering the building from view as much as you're just accenting the site to be complementary to the building. I don't know, I don't remember her name, but she owns a stone house and she's got the meadow there, and that's very well vegetated too. But the intent is not to screen the building from view. That's not going to happen. You're going to see it. But you'll have some landscaping to help soften it at the bottom and beautify the entire thing.
And Kevin, we tried to be realistic in our 3D renderings with what landscaping would look like in the first year. It wasn't, as he was saying, small ornamental trees and shrubs and bushes.
Yeah.
To soften the building.
There's some trees that are along that property line that border the meadow that are on this property, that they'll come out. I mean, they're no value at all. They're scrubbed and just beat up. And take those out and start over new. But it's an advantage to have that meadow there to serve as a buffer. But that's not on their property.
Okay, any other question of Steve and his team? Okay, Steve, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there anybody from the public that would like to talk? I think you know the drill, Tim.
I do.
Okay.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Tim Gupton. I live at 235 Meadow Lane in Blowing Rock. And I wanted to thank Mr. Heatherton for listening to the community and coming back with this project. The concern that we had in the beginning was really the adequacy of parking, and I think you've addressed that in this proposal. I was trying to sort through in my mind the difference between, as I talked to Kevin about it, the difference between a special use permit, which is the standard approach for this according to the table in the code, as opposed to the conditional zoning district. And I understand the concept. Really what they're asking for is a height variance in this request. I guess you could ask for a height variance in a special use permit as well, but you wouldn't have the by right advantage of a special use permit. So I just share that to try to understand the motivation of the developer to use a conditional zoning district, is that the right word in this case? So conceptually, I understand that because you're presenting a concept as opposed to something you're trying to get approved by just meeting all the code specifically. And to Mike's point, I guess I do understand your point about separate buildings, but I suppose if you had separate buildings, you might have setbacks between the separate buildings, so therefore, you wouldn't get the same square footage. But really, it comes down to just understanding and agreeing or disagreeing with the height condition. So I only had 2 questions. One was, how does this height compare to 1150 Main? And to your point about the trees, is there any requirement in terms of size? Can there be a condition on, replacing large trees with something of, at least, not...
3-inch caliper.
What does that mean? Like 12 feet tall?
Oh, at least. 3-inch caliper is going to be 3 inches diameter, 6 inches above the root ball.
Because I think that's an important point from, at least from the Laurel Lane perspective. So really just the 1159 question.
Yeah, from a tree perspective, a good idea is to look at the 6-inch caliper trees we planted, I think it was elms and some black gums that we planted in the park. And Brian, he's not here tonight, but he'll tell you that in a test study, a 3-inch caliper tree will surpass the growth of a 6-inch caliper tree based on the shock value of planting a tree that big. 2.5 to 3-inch caliper is an ideal size because you've got some good size. It's better than a little half-inch thing, but that's the target size to plant to get good growth in the first couple of years. These trees out here have struggled. The instant impact, because you've got a big tree, but it takes a long time, 4 or 5 years to really get the root growth going. And that's based on what Brian told me the other day when talking about trees. So they're going to plant, whatever they plant will have to be 3-inch caliper minimum.
Okay.
Well, we explained, Tim and I talked the other day about this, is that they have the choice to go special use permit for that type of use or request a conditional district. One is quasi-judicial, one is legislative.
Right.
It can get to council as a legislative decision, and they say, we're just not interested. They're not obligated in any way to rezone the property because it's a legislative decision, it's a policy decision. That's the risk of going the conditional zoning route. Special use, you meet the code, you're pretty much with conditions that can be applied. It's not a slam dunk, but it's pretty much, you meet the code, you should be able to get a permit. And that's just basic planning 101. Bill, back me up.
Okay, Tim, thank you. Is there anybody else that would want to talk?
The height of 1150.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to answer Tim's question. So the height that we had for 1150 is 32 feet. We requested 2 feet extra. We were allowed 30 feet. The village shops next to us was at 35 feet. But just in perspective of where this height would be to the roof line of 1150, 1150 Main is about 10 feet higher than this building.
Because of the elevation. The elevation. The ground is 10 feet taller. Thank you. If I could add something just about the trees, the ones that we're replacing, they're standing dead pine trees, and we just felt like if we're going to be in there with construction equipment and clearing the lawn, it'd be a heck of a lot easier for us to do it. And we just want to volunteer that. And it's somewhat self-serving too, is if one of those trees comes down on our building, you don't want to build a brand new building and then have a standing dead tree beside it. And so it's a benefit to us, but we also thought that'd be a benefit to the town, because at some point they would come down and it'll be the town's responsibility to clean them all. So we just wanted to be proactive with that.
Okay, thank you.
We've got some right across the road from this exit that we're going to have to take down over there on Bob's property.
And then I think Steve mentioned too about the utilities, but if the board would like, we'll be fine with you adding a condition that we do extend a 6-inch water line down there and a fire hydrant. We think that would be a benefit to the community too. As Steve mentioned, it's something we have to do to meet the fire code. We spoke with the fire marshal about it and the fire chief, but I think that will be a benefit too, to get fire protection down high, because currently there's just a 4-inch line down there. So the state will let you put fire hydrants on a 4-inch line, it has to be a 6-inch line.
Hydrant on the corner of Wallingford in front of the building.
We need fire protection.
Okay, if there's, did you want to speak?
No, I'm with Miguel.
Oh, okay. If there's no other comments, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing section.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay. All those in favor? Okay. We've heard from everybody. We've heard from Kevin. We've heard from Steve. We've heard from Tim. Any further discussion with Kevin? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Tammy, Mike, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Is that with the conditions of the height?
Yes.
We're going to add in the water line and hydrant.
I understand what we are, the motion is to approve the request for the variance to have the 40-foot height at the 65-foot setback. This is as proposed in the drawings.
Right, they said they would be glad to add in the condition that they will extend that water line and add hydrant. After that. You want to include that or just use
I couldn't hear what you said. Yes, you probably, yes.
They offered to include extending that 6-inch water line in the hydrant. I mean, do we need to add anything?
No, they can just add it to a list of conditions when we go to final document to council.
Okay. So
Who was the second? I'm sorry. Oh,
Pete Page was the second. So we have a first and a second. We'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. Steve?
Okay.
Other business, Kevin?
Don't have any.
Okay.
Not at the moment.
As most of you know, I got elected to town council. And so I submitted my resignation to Shane effective December 1st. And he has that. And what I'd like to do is to thank Kevin and Tammy for this journey. It was a privilege to serve. And I would encourage anybody in the community that wants to get involved to do these kinds of things, because it really opens your eyes to what's going on in the community and working with all the groups. So thank you to Kevin and Tammy. Thank you to my fellow board members for all the insights and things that you bring. It's a service to the town, and I think you all should be proud of what you all do. And then finally, I would remind everybody, we have 4 vacancies now that are coming up. So if you know people that are interested, please tell them to apply. I think Tammy, is it January 3rd that applications have to be in, I think, to Hillary?
Sounds about right.
yeah.
Okay.
Don't wait that long.
So please do that, because the next couple of years moving forward is going to be a lot of stuff on the table, and We simply have to have some good people up here doing this. I mean, we got great people here that are going to still stay, but Mike is going off, I'm going off. Who else? And then we had Wes Carter's position.
And then Sam Glover, his seat was a fill-in, so his seat is open too.
Okay.
And hopefully he'll.
So with that, thank you very much for the opportunity to do this, and if there's no further business, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Well, before I do that, thank you for what you have done, both as a member of the board and taking on the responsibility of the chair, which is no small responsibility. Best of luck in your new endeavor.
Is there a bulletproof vest that comes with that? Okay, well, thank you very much, and we're adjourned. Thank you very much.